Everything they tried to take from me was always mine.
You know what's funny about betrayal? It doesn't come with a soundtrack or dramatic lighting. It comes with your wife standing in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, telling you that you'll never be good enough, while the morning sun streams through windows you've been meaning to fix for 3 years. I want a divorce, Nick. Vanessa Carlson, soon to be Vanessa something else, delivered those 4 words like she was ordering takeout. Casual, matter of fact. Like she hadn't just torched 15 years of marriage with the emotional investment of someone discussing the weather. I set down my contractor's thermos and looked at her. Really looked. When had she gotten so cold? Her blonde hair was perfect, as always. Her makeup flawless at 7 in the morning. Everything about her screamed money and ambition. Money we didn't have, ambitions I apparently couldn't fulfill. Just like that? I asked. Just like that. She sipped her coffee. Damien's sending a car for the kids and me this afternoon. Damien Price. Of course. The tech millionaire who'd been sniffing around our suburban neighborhood like a shark in a kiddie pool. I'd seen his Tesla parked outside Rita's house, Vanessa's best friend, more times than I cared to count over the past few months. The kids don't even know him. They'll learn. Vanessa shrugged. He can give them things you never could, Nick. Private schools, college funds, a real future. A real future. As opposed to the fake one I'd been trying to build with my bare hands for 16 years. And what about me? What about you? She looked genuinely puzzled, like I was a piece of furniture she'd forgotten to account for. You'll figure it out. You always do. The front door opened, and Jake walked in. 16 years old, all elbows and attitude, looking like a younger version of me, before life beat the optimism out of him. Mom, there's some fancy car outside, he said, then noticed the tension in the room. What's going on? Your mother's leaving, I said before Vanessa could sugarcoat it. Jake's face went through several emotions before settling on anger. What do you mean, leaving? I mean, I'm done pretending this is working, Vanessa said, her voice sharp. I'm done with this house, this neighborhood, this life. I want more. More than us? Emily appeared in the doorway. 14, quiet, observant. My daughter who noticed everything and said little. More than this, Vanessa gestured around our kitchen with its outdated appliances and worn linoleum. I deserve better. We all deserve better, Jake shot back. Doesn't mean we bail on family. Vanessa's laugh was bitter. Family? Your father's been failing upward his entire life. I married potential, not reality. That one hit home. I'd been a decent boxer once, before a shoulder injury ended that dream. Decent contractor now, but nothing special. Nothing that screamed success or money, or any of the things Vanessa had apparently been keeping score of all these years. Pack your things, she told the kids. We're leaving in an hour. I'm not going anywhere, Jake said. Yes, you are. Vanessa's voice went ice cold. I have custody papers being filed today. You're both minors. You don't get a choice. Emily started crying. Quiet tears, the kind that break your heart because they're trying not to be noticed. Hey, I said, pulling her close. It's going to be okay. No, it's not, Vanessa said. Nothing about this situation is okay. But it's necessary. The limo arrived exactly when she said it would. Black, sleek, expensive. The driver, some guy in a suit who probably made more than I did, helped load their hastily packed bags. Mrs. Dorsey from next door watched from her window, not even pretending to hide her curiosity. The whole neighborhood would know by dinner. Vanessa Carlson had traded up. Jake hugged me hard before getting in the car. Emily clung to me like I was the last solid thing in her world. I'll see you soon, I promised, though I had no idea if that was true. Will you? Vanessa asked from the limo's open door. Because Damien's lawyers are very good, Nick. Very expensive, very thorough. The threat was clear. Fight this and lose everything. I watched the limo disappear around the corner, taking my family with it. The house felt different immediately, emptier, like someone had sucked the life out of it. Mrs. Dorsey knocked on my door 20 minutes later with a casserole and barely concealed excitement. I heard about Vanessa, she said, pushing past me into the living room. Such a shame. Though I always thought she had expensive tastes for someone married to a, she caught herself. Well, a contractor, I finished. Exactly. She set the casserole on my coffee table like she was claiming territory. Rita mentioned Vanessa's been seeing that Price fellow. The one with all the money. Handsome, too. Rita, Vanessa's best friend and apparently the neighborhood gossip distribution center. Thanks for the food, Mrs. Dorsey. She took the hint and left, but not before delivering one final observation. You know, Nick, maybe this is for the best. Some people are just meant for different things. I spent the next hour sitting in my empty living room, staring at the casserole, and wondering when my life had become a country song. Then I remembered the attic. I'd been putting off cleaning it for years. Vanessa had been nagging me about it constantly. All that junk from my grandfather's estate, boxes I'd never bothered to go through after he died 10 years ago. Might as well start somewhere. The attic was a museum of neglect. Dust particles danced in the afternoon sunlight, streaming through the small window. Boxes stacked on boxes, labeled in my grandfather's careful handwriting, business papers, personal effects, legal documents. I'd loved the old man. Thomas Carlson had been a force of nature, built a small manufacturing company from nothing, employed half our town at one point. But he'd lost most of it in bad investments before he died, or so the family lawyers had told us. I started with the box labeled personal effects. Old photographs, his watch, some jewelry that might be worth something. Then I moved to business papers. That's when I found it. A briefcase locked with my name written on a piece of tape in my grandfather's handwriting, for Nick Carlson only. I'd never seen it before. Never even knew it existed. The lock was old but sturdy. I had to go downstairs and get a screwdriver to pry it open. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, were documents that made my hands shake. A will, my grandfather's real will, dated 6 months before he died. And according to this will, Thomas Carlson hadn't lost his fortune at all. He'd hidden it. The manufacturing company hadn't been sold. It had been transferred into a trust. A trust worth approximately $100 million. A trust that, according to the legal documents in the briefcase, belonged entirely to me. Not to my father, who'd died 5 years ago. Not to my uncles or cousins who'd been fighting over grandfather's debts for a decade. To me. I read the document 3 times, then read it again. The language was clear, the signatures witnessed and notarized. This wasn't some fantasy or mistake. There was more. Bank statements showing the trust's growth over the past 10 years. Property deeds for buildings I'd never heard of. Stock certificates for companies I recognized. And at the bottom of the briefcase, a letter in my grandfather's handwriting. Nick, if you're reading this, then the family vultures have been circling, and you've probably been told I died broke. That's what I wanted them to think. You were always the only one who visited me because you wanted to, not because you smelled inheritance money. You worked with your hands, built things, fixed things. You reminded me of myself at your age. The lawyers have the real will, but I hid this copy because I didn't trust your father or his brothers not to contest it. The combination to the safe deposit box is your birthday, month and year. Everything else you need is in there. Don't let them steal what's yours. Grandfather. I sat in the dusty attic, surrounded by the wreckage of my old life, holding the key to a new one. Vanessa had wanted a real man with real money. Game on. Lenny Morrison had been my friend since high school. Back then, he'd been the skinny kid who got picked on until I taught him how to throw a punch. Now he was a lawyer with his own practice and a dry sense of humor that could cut glass. His office was nothing fancy. A converted storefront in downtown with Morrison Legal Services painted on the window in gold letters that were starting to peel. But Lenny was smart, thorough, and more importantly, he owed me about 15 favors from over the years. Jesus Christ, Nick, he said, looking up from the documents I'd spread across his desk. Where did you find these? Grandfather's attic, hidden in a briefcase with my name on it. Lenny picked up the will and examined it closely. This is legitimate. The signatures, the witnesses, the notary seal, everything checks out. But I don't understand. Your family's been saying Thomas died broke for 10 years. Apparently, that was the plan. I handed him the letter. Read this. Lenny's eyebrows went up as he read. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled. Your grandfather was a smart man, and a suspicious one. Can you verify this? The trust, the bank accounts, all of it? I'll need to make some calls, but yes, if this is real and it looks real, then you're a very wealthy man, Nick. We're talking generational wealth. I thought about Vanessa's parting words, about how I'd never be good enough, never give her the life she deserved. How long to verify everything? Give me a week. Maybe less if I can reach the right people. Lenny gathered the documents carefully. Nick, if this is legitimate, it changes everything. Your divorce, custody of the kids, all of it. That's what I'm counting on. I left Lenny's office and drove to the gym where I'd been training since I was 16. Mickey's boxing was a throwback. Heavy bags, speed bags, and the smell of sweat and ambition. Mickey Rodriguez had trained me when I was fighting professionally. And he'd given me a job and a place to stay when Vanessa kicked me out. You look different, Mickey said when I walked in. Less like someone ran over your dog. Maybe I found a new dog. Mickey was in his 60s, built like a fire hydrant, with hands that had seen more fights than most people see movies. He'd been a contender once, back in the day, before boxing politics and bad management ended his shot at a title. Vanessa's been calling here, he said. Wants to know where you're staying. What did you tell her? That it's none of her business, plain and simple. Mickey tossed me a pair of gloves. But she's persistent, and she mentioned lawyers. I spent an hour working the heavy bag, thinking about the briefcase and what it meant. Every punch felt like I was hitting back at the last 10 years of disappointment, of being told I wasn't enough. When I finished, Mickey was waiting with a towel and a bottle of water. You want to tell me what's got you so fired up? Just working through some things. Uh-huh. Mickey didn't believe me, but he didn't push. That was one thing I liked about him. He understood that some fights you had to work out alone. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Rosario's at 8 V. Vanessa wanted to meet. Interesting. Rosario's was an upscale Italian place downtown. The kind of restaurant where the portions are small and the prices are large. Not the kind of place I usually frequented on a contractor's salary, but I had a feeling that was about to change. Vanessa was already seated when I arrived, at a corner table that probably cost $50 just to reserve. She'd dressed for the occasion. Black dress, jewelry I didn't recognize. Hair and makeup perfect. She looked like $1 million. Too bad she'd just lost $100 million. You came, she said as I sat down. You said we needed to talk. She signaled the waiter and ordered wine without asking what I wanted. Same old Vanessa, assuming she knew what was best for everyone. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, she said once the waiter left. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe. This doesn't have to be ugly, Nick. We can work something out. Joint custody, fair division of assets, civilized. I almost laughed. Assets. Our house had maybe $50,000 in equity, and my truck was worth about what I owed on it. The only other asset was my grandfather's inheritance, which she knew nothing about, yet. What's the catch? No catch. I just think we should be mature about this, for the kids' sake. The wine arrived. Vanessa took a sip and smiled. Damien thinks you're a good man. He'd like to meet you properly. I'll bet he would. He's not what you think, Nick. He's kind, generous. He cares about Jake and Emily. He's known them for what, a day? He's known about them for months. I've told him everything. Vanessa leaned forward. He wants to help. Private school, college funds, everything they need. And what does he want in return? Just a chance to be part of their lives. To be the father figure they deserve. The father figure they deserve. Not the father they have, but the one they deserve. The distinction was clear. Where is he tonight? Business dinner. Some investors from California. She waved it dismissively. The point is, he's successful, Nick. Really successful. He can give them opportunities you never could. Such as, Jake wants to study engineering. Do you know what MIT costs? Emily loves art. There are programs in Europe the best teachers money can buy. Vanessa's eyes lit up as she talked about spending Damien's money. They could have everything. And what do I get? You get to be their father, just not their provider. I finished my wine and signaled for the check. I need to think about it. Don't think too long, Vanessa said. Damien's lawyers are very good. If this gets ugly, you'll lose everything. I paid the check and stood up. We'll see. Outside the restaurant, I called Lenny. Any word on those documents? Funny you should call. I just got off the phone with Hartwell, Stone and Associates. They've been managing your grandfather's trust for 10 years. And, and congratulations, Nick. You're worth approximately $120 million. I sat down on a bench outside the restaurant, feeling like someone had hit me with a baseball bat. 120? The trust has been growing. Good investments, compound interest. Your grandfather was smarter than anyone gave him credit for. Through the restaurant window, I could see Vanessa still sitting at our table, probably texting Damien about how the meeting went. How she'd handled her ex-husband, the failure, the man who'd never be good enough. Lenny, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I want to take control of the trust tomorrow. All of it. That's going to require some paperwork, but it's doable. Nick, are you sure you're ready for this? This kind of money changes everything. I watched Vanessa through the window, saw her laugh at something on her phone. Probably sharing the joke with Rita or one of her other friends about how easy it had been to manipulate me. I'm sure. What are you planning? Just evening the score. I hung up and walked to my truck. Tomorrow I'd be one of the richest men in the state. Tonight I was still just Nick Carlson, the contractor who wasn't good enough. But that was about to change. The law offices of Hartwell, Stone and Associates occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. Real lawyers, the kind who wore $1,000 suits and billed by the minute. The kind Vanessa had been threatening me with. James Hartwell was in his 70s, with white hair and the kind of gravitas that comes from 50 years of making rich people richer. He'd been my grandfather's lawyer and friend, and according to Lenny, he'd been waiting 10 years for me to show up. Your grandfather was a remarkable man, Hartwell said, gesturing for me to sit in a leather chair that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He predicted this day would come. He knew Vanessa would leave me. He knew someone would. Thomas always said you were too trusting for your own good. Hartwell opened a thick file. He also said that when you finally got angry enough to fight back, you'd be unstoppable. The trust documents were even more impressive in an actual law office. Properties, investments, businesses I'd never heard of. My grandfather hadn't just been wealthy. He'd been building an empire. The manufacturing company was just the beginning, Hartwell explained. Thomas used the profits to buy real estate, invest in startups, acquire other businesses. He had a gift for seeing potential where others saw risk. Why didn't he tell me? Because he wanted you to earn it. Not the money, that was always yours, but the wisdom to handle it properly. Hartwell smiled. He used to say that money given too early makes men weak, but money earned through hardship makes them dangerous. I signed papers for 2 hours. Transfer documents, bank authorizations, corporate resolutions. With each signature, I could feel the balance of power shifting. There's one more thing, Hartwell said as we finished. Your grandfather left specific instructions about your family. He handed me another document. A background report on my father's brothers and their families, the relatives who'd been circling like vultures after grandfather's death. They've been stealing from the estate for years, Hartwell said. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger an investigation, but it adds up. The report detailed fake invoices, padded expenses, outright theft. My Uncle Robert had been using estate funds to pay his mortgage. Cousin Danny had been charging personal expenses to the trust. In total, they'd stolen nearly $2 million. Your grandfather knew? He suspected. He hired investigators but died before he could act on their findings. Hartwell's smile turned cold. He left that decision to you. I spent the afternoon at the trust's main office, meeting the people who'd been managing my money for a decade without my knowledge. Property managers, investment advisors, accountants. They treated me with the kind of respect reserved for people who sign their paychecks. By 5 o'clock, I owned 17 properties, had controlling interests in 4 companies, and a stock portfolio that would make Warren Buffett jealous. I also had a plan. My first call was to Rita Patterson, Vanessa's best friend, and the neighborhood's unofficial gossip coordinator. Rita had always been friendly to my face while probably talking trash behind my back. Nick, I heard about you and Vanessa. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Rita. Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you something. Of course. Vanessa mentioned that Damien's been around the neighborhood a lot. I just want to make sure he's good with kids, as a father myself. Rita's voice got excited. She loved having inside information. Oh, he's wonderful. So charming, so successful. Did you know he owns 3 companies? And that penthouse downtown, it's like something from a magazine. 3 companies? Technology firms, very cutting-edge stuff. Rita lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, I think Vanessa hit the jackpot. The man's worth millions. Good for her. I mean, no offense, Nick, but you have to admit, she deserves someone who can take care of her properly. There it was, the neighborhood consensus. Vanessa had traded up. You're probably right, Rita. Hey, you wouldn't happen to know which companies Damien owns, would you? I might be looking for work soon. Oh, I don't know the names. Something with computers. Very technical. She paused. But I'm sure he'd help you out. He seems like the generous type. I thanked Rita and hung up, then called my new team of investigators. I need everything you can find on Damien Price. Business dealings, financial status, personal history, everything. How deep do you want us to go? All the way to the bottom. While I waited for the report on Damien, I decided to visit my kids. Vanessa had moved them into Price's penthouse, a glass tower downtown that screamed money and power. The doorman was polite but firm. I'm sorry, sir, Mr. Price left specific instructions. No visitors without prior approval. I'm their father. I understand, sir, but I have my orders. I could have made a scene, but that wasn't the play. Not yet. Instead, I went home and waited. The investigator's report on Damien arrived by email at midnight. 20 pages of financial records, business filings, and personal history. Damien Price wasn't worth millions. He was broke. His 3 companies were shells propped up by loans and investor money. He'd been playing a shell game for years, moving money between accounts to create the illusion of success. His penthouse was leased, his cars were financed, and according to the report, he was approximately 6 months away from bankruptcy. But the most interesting detail was on page 15. Damien Price had been married before. Twice. Both times to wealthy women. Both marriages had ended in expensive divorces that had left his ex-wives financially ruined. Vanessa wasn't his girlfriend. She was his mark. I printed the report and put it in a manila envelope. Tomorrow, I'd start evening the score. But first, I had a phone call to make. Hartwell? It's Nick Carlson. I've made a decision about my family. The ones who have been stealing from the estate. Yes, I want them prosecuted, all of them. That will cause quite a stir in your family. Good. It's time they learned what happens when you steal from a Carlson. I hung up and looked around my tiny apartment above Mickey's gym. Tomorrow, I'd be moving into something more appropriate for a man worth $120 million. Tonight, I was still the guy who wasn't good enough. But that was about to change. I bought the building across from Damien's penthouse tower. Not the apartment, the entire building. It took one phone call and a wire transfer that barely dented my new bank account. From the roof, I had a perfect view of the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows. With a good pair of binoculars, I could see everything. Vanessa was living like a queen. Designer clothes, expensive furniture, a lifestyle she'd dreamed about for years. Jake and Emily looked uncomfortable, like actors playing roles they didn't understand. My phone rang. Lenny, your family's not taking the theft charges well, he said. Your Uncle Robert called me screaming about family loyalty. What did you tell him? That loyalty works both ways. The DA's office is very interested in the case. $2 million is serious money. Good. What about the other thing? The custody filing already submitted. With your new financial status, no judge in the world will give Vanessa primary custody. I watched through the binoculars as Vanessa poured herself a glass of wine in Damien's kitchen. She looked happy, content, like she'd finally gotten everything she deserved. There's something else, Lenny said. Vanessa's lawyer called. She wants to meet. Set it up. The meeting was at Vanessa's lawyer's office, a sleek downtown firm that specialized in high-end divorces. The kind of place where they charged you for breathing their air. Margaret Chen was Vanessa's attorney. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper attitude. She'd built her reputation destroying wealthy men in divorce court. Mr. Carlson, she said without getting up from her desk, I understand you're contesting the custody arrangement. I'm contesting everything. Based on what? Your wife has provided a stable home environment with adequate financial resources. You're living above a boxing gym. I opened my briefcase and placed a copy of the trust documents on her desk. Chen's expression changed as she read. Her confidence evaporated like water on hot pavement. This is substantial, she said finally. 120 million substantial. Where did this come from? My grandfather's estate. Apparently there was some confusion about his will. Chen was smart enough to know when the game had changed. What do you want? Full custody of my children. The house. And I want Vanessa to stay away from my family. That's not going to happen. Then we'll let a judge decide. I'm sure they'll be very interested in why Vanessa suddenly wanted a divorce right before I came into $100 million. Chen's jaw tightened. Are you suggesting my client had prior knowledge of your inheritance? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts and letting people draw their own conclusions. I left Chen's office and drove to the penthouse building. This time, the doorman was much more accommodating. Mr. Carlson, I'm so sorry about yesterday. I didn't realize. It's fine. Is my valet available? I'll call up immediately. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt like ascending to another world. When the doors opened, I stepped into a living space that cost more than most people's houses. Vanessa was waiting, and she was furious. What the heck do you think you're doing? Coming to see my kids? Your kids? After the stunt you pulled with your lawyer? Jake and Emily appeared from one of the bedrooms. They looked relieved to see me. Dad! Emily ran over and hugged me. Hey, sweetheart, how are you settling in? It's okay, I guess. Really big. Jake was more reserved, but I could see the questions in his eyes. He was 16, old enough to know something had changed. Where's Damien? I asked. Business meeting, Vanessa said. He's very busy. Very important people depend on him. I'm sure they do. I spent an hour with the kids talking about school and friends and normal things. Vanessa hovered nearby, clearly uncomfortable with my presence in her new kingdom. When it was time to leave, Jake walked me to the elevator. Dad, what's going on? Mom's been acting weird, and this place... He gestured around the expensive lobby. This isn't us. Things are changing, son. But don't worry, everything's going to work out. Are you okay? I mean, financially and stuff? I smiled. I'm doing better than okay. That evening, I moved into my new apartment. Not just any apartment, the penthouse in the building I'd bought that morning. It was bigger than Damien's place, with better views and more expensive everything. I called Rita Patterson. Rita, it's Nick. I wanted to thank you for the advice about Damien. Oh, you're welcome. Did you ask him about a job? Actually, I did some research on his companies. Very impressive. I told you, the man's a genius. Absolutely. Hey, you wouldn't happen to know if he's planning any big business moves, would you? I heard rumors about expansion. Rita's voice dropped to a whisper. Well, I probably shouldn't say anything, but Vanessa mentioned he's working on some huge deal. International investors or something. Could be worth millions. Good for him. Between you and me, I think he's going to propose soon. Vanessa's been hinting about it. After I hung up, I called my investigator. I need you to dig deeper on Damien Price. Focus on his current business deals and any pending legal issues. We found something interesting already. Price has been using his personal relationships to secure investments. Essentially, he dates wealthy women, gains their trust, then convinces them to invest in his companies. How many women? At least 6 over the past 5 years. Total losses around $12 million. Any of them press charges? 2 tried. Both cases were settled out of court with non-disclosure agreements. I hung up and walked to the window. Across the street, I could see into Damien's penthouse. Vanessa was cooking dinner, playing house with a man who was planning to rob her blind. The irony was beautiful. My phone buzzed. Text from Jake. Dad, can you pick us up from school tomorrow? Mom's busy with wedding planning. Wedding planning? I texted back. Of course. Looking forward to it. Time to accelerate the timeline. I picked up Jake and Emily from their expensive private school in my new car. A Mercedes that cost more than my old house. The kids' eyes went wide when they saw it. Dad, whose car is this? Emily asked. Mine. Since when do you drive a Mercedes? Jake was suspicious, which I respected. Since yesterday. Get in, we need to talk. I drove them to an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place where lunch costs more than most people spend on groceries. The hostess seated us immediately. Money has a way of opening doors. Okay, Dad, what's going on? Jake said once we'd ordered. First the car, now this place. Did you rob a bank? Something like that. I pulled out copies of the trust documents. Kids, there's something I need to tell you about your great-grandfather. I explained everything. The hidden will, the stolen inheritance, the fact that our family had been living a lie for 10 years. Jake and Emily listened with growing amazement. So we're rich? Emily asked. Very rich. And Mom doesn't know? Jake was putting the pieces together. Not yet. Jake leaned back in his chair. She left you because she thought you were broke, and now you're worth more than her boyfriend? That's about the size of it. This is like a movie, Emily said. What are you going to do? I'm going to get my family back. But first, I need to show your mother who she's really dealing with. That afternoon, I had my investigator deliver a package to Damien's office. Inside was a complete financial profile of his business dealings, including the names and contact information of his previous victims. Then I waited. Damien called that evening. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was tight, controlled. "I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at the Harbor Club in an hour." The Harbor Club was old money. Leather chairs, crystal glasses, and the kind of atmosphere where deals were made with handshakes. Damien was waiting in a corner booth, looking like a man who'd just learned his house was on fire. "You've been busy," he said as I sat down. "Just getting to know my new neighbor." "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my family." Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your family? Vanessa came to me, remember? She's the one who wanted out. Because she thought I was broke." "Are you threatening me?" "I don't make threats. I make promises." I signaled the waiter for a drink. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to break up with Vanessa. Cleanly, quietly, with minimal drama. And if I don't?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo, Damien having dinner with another woman the night before. "Then I show Vanessa this picture of you with Jennifer Walsh. She's pretty, by the way. How much money has she invested in your companies?" Damien's face went pale. "You son of a witch. I prefer concerned father. Jennifer's not your only side project, is she? There's also Rebecca in Boston and Sarah in Miami. Amazing how you manage to maintain long-distance relationships with so many wealthy women. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to plant doubt." I finished my drink and stood up. "You have 24 hours?" I left Damien at the table and drove home. My phone was ringing before I reached the lobby. "Nick, it's Vanessa. We need to talk. Now." "I'm listening. Not over the phone. Come up." The elevator ride to Damien's penthouse felt different this time, like ascending to a battlefield. Vanessa was pacing when I arrived, still beautiful but with cracks showing in her perfect facade. "What did you say to Damien?" "We had a conversation. He's acting strange, distant. He canceled our dinner plans and locked himself in his office. Maybe he's busy. Don't play games with me, Nick. I know you did something." I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city. "Nice view. Must be expensive." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just wondering how a guy in the tech business can afford a place like this. Software must be more profitable than I thought." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You've been checking up on him." "I've been checking up on the man who's living with my children. Any father would do the same." "And what did you find?" "Enough." She walked over and stood next to me at the window. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, human. "He's a good man, Nick." "Is he? He cares about me, about the kids." "How much do you really know about Damien Price?" "I know enough. Do you know about Jennifer Walsh, Rebecca Martinez, Sarah Chen?" Vanessa's confidence wavered. "Who are they?" "Ask Damien." I headed for the elevator, but Vanessa grabbed my arm. "Wait, Nick, what's happening here?" "You're different. The car, the clothes, the way you're acting. It's like you're a different person." "Maybe I am. People don't just change overnight." "Sure they do. Sometimes all it takes is the right motivation." The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. 24 hours, Vanessa, then everything changes. As the doors closed, I saw her standing in the middle of Damien's expensive penthouse, looking lost and alone. It almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. I didn't have to wait 24 hours. Damien cracked an 18. I was having breakfast in my new penthouse when I heard shouting from across the street. Through the windows, I could see Vanessa and Damien having what looked like a very heated argument. My phone rang. "Jake." "Dad, you need to get over here. Mom and Damien are having a huge fight, and Emily's crying." "I'm on my way." By the time I reached the penthouse, the argument had moved to the living room. Damien was packing a suitcase while Vanessa followed him around, demanding answers. 3 years, she was screaming. 3 years you've been lying to me." "I never lied about anything," Damien shot back. "You made assumptions." "I made assumptions? You told me you owned 3 companies. I do own them. They're just not profitable yet." Jake and Emily were huddled on the couch, looking like refugees from a war zone. I walked over and put my arms around them. Hey, kids, rough morning? They've been fighting for an hour, Emily whispered. Vanessa noticed me for the first time. This is your fault. My fault? You poisoned him against me. You filled his head with lies. I didn't have to fill his head with anything. The truth was already there. Damien looked up from his packing. Your ex-husband hired investigators. Very thorough ones. Investigators? Vanessa's voice cracked. To investigate what? Everything, I said. His business, his finances, his relationship history. Relationship history? Damien stopped packing. Vanessa, we need to talk. Privately. No. Vanessa's voice was steel. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of everyone. I'm tired of secrets. Damien looked at me, then at the kids, then back at Vanessa. Fine. Your ex-husband discovered that I've had relationships with other women during our time together. Relationships? Business relationships that became personal. I almost laughed. Even caught red-handed, he was still trying to spin it. How many? Vanessa asked. Does it matter? How many? Damien threw a shirt into his suitcase. 4, maybe 5. Maybe 5? Vanessa's voice rose to a shriek. You don't know how many women you're sleeping with? It's not like that. Then what is it like? I decided to help him out. It's like a business model. Date wealthy women, gain their trust, convince them to invest in his companies. Very efficient. Shut up, Damien snarled. How much money? Vanessa asked quietly. What? How much money did they give you? Damien didn't answer. $12 million, I said, give or take. Vanessa sat down heavily on the couch next to Emily. 12 million. Vanessa, you have to understand. I understand perfectly. Her voice was dead calm. You're a con artist, a very handsome, very charming con artist. I never took money from you. Because I don't have any money. Vanessa laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm married to a contractor who lives above a gym. Actually, I said, that's not entirely accurate anymore. Everyone turned to look at me. Kids, why don't you go to your rooms for a few minutes? Dad, we want to stay, Jake said. This is adult conversation. Go. They went reluctantly, leaving me alone with Vanessa and Damien. What did you mean, not entirely accurate? Vanessa asked. I pulled out the trust documents and handed them to her. Vanessa read in silence, her face going through a range of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, understanding. $120 million, she said finally, give or take. Your grandfather's inheritance. That's right. The grandfather who died broke. Apparently, that was a misunderstanding. Vanessa looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw real emotion in her eyes. Not calculation or manipulation or social climbing ambition, just raw, honest shock. When did you find out? The day you left me. The day I... She stopped. You've known for a week? About that. Damien had stopped packing and was staring at the documents. 120 million? Don't get any ideas, I told him. You're done here. Vanessa, we can work this out. Get out. Her voice was barely a whisper. What? Get out now, before I call security. Damien looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Vanessa's expression stopped him. He finished packing in silence and headed for the door. This isn't over, he said to me. Yes, it is. After he left, Vanessa and I sat in silence for several minutes. The penthouse felt different without Damien's presence. Emptier, but also cleaner. I left you for a con man, she said finally. Looks that way. I left you the day before you became worth $100 million. Terrible timing, she laughed, but it sounded more like crying. I destroyed our marriage for nothing. Not for nothing. You got clarity about what you really wanted. What I wanted was security, financial security. And now? She looked around the expensive penthouse. The designer furniture, the crystal glasses, the view that cost $10,000 a month. Now, I realize I had security all along. I just didn't recognize it. I called Jake and Emily back into the room. Is he gone? Emily asked. He's gone. Good, Jake said. I never liked him. Why didn't you say anything? Vanessa asked. Would you have listened? Vanessa had no answer for that. What happens now? Emily asked. I looked at Vanessa. That depends on your mother. I want to come home, Vanessa said quietly, if you'll have me. I thought about the past week, the humiliation, the anger, the satisfaction of watching everything fall into place. I thought about 15 years of marriage and 2 children who needed both their parents. We'll need to talk, really talk, about everything. I know. And there will be conditions, such as marriage counseling, complete honesty, and you need to understand that I'm not the same man you left. Vanessa looked at me, really looked for the first time in years. No, she said, you're not. 3 months later, we were back in our old house. Not because we couldn't afford better, but because I wanted Vanessa to remember what she'd almost thrown away. The marriage counseling was brutal. Hours of dissecting every resentment, every disappointment, every moment where we'd chosen pride over understanding. Dr. Sarah Martinez was a no-nonsense therapist who didn't let either of us hide behind excuses. Vanessa, you married Nick for his potential, then resented him for not living up to your expectations, she said during one particularly difficult session. Nick, you withdrew emotionally rather than fighting for what you wanted. I was working 60 hours a week trying to provide for my family, I said. You were hiding from conflict, Dr. Martinez replied. Both of you were so busy keeping score that you forgot you were supposed to be on the same team. It was hard work, but it was working. Slowly, carefully, we were rebuilding something that looked like trust. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Jake was relieved to be back in his old room, and Emily seemed happier without the pressure of living in Damien's artificial world. Dad, Jake said one evening as we worked on his college applications, are you going to stay rich? What do you mean? I mean, are you going to keep the money or give it away or what? It was a good question. The money had given me power, but it had also revealed things about people, including myself, that weren't always comfortable. I'm going to use it, I said, but carefully. For what? For the things that matter. Your education, Emily's art classes, your mother's nonprofit work, and maybe to help other people who've been in situations like ours. I'd already started. My Uncle Robert and the other family members who'd stolen from the estate had been prosecuted and convicted. They'd received suspended sentences and were paying restitution. But more importantly, they'd learned that actions have consequences. I'd also established a foundation to help people going through difficult divorces, men and women who couldn't afford good lawyers or investigators. It felt good to level the playing field. The biggest surprise was how the money changed my relationship with work. I still went to construction sites, but now I owned the company. I still worked with my hands, but now I was building something bigger than just buildings. Mr. Carlson? My assistant knocked on my office door. There's a Damien Price here to see you. I looked up from the blueprints I'd been reviewing. Send him in. Damien looked different, thinner, older, with the haunted expression of a man who'd lost everything. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his confidence was gone. Hello, Nick. Damien, I heard about the bankruptcy. Yeah, well, turns out when people know you're a fraud, they stop giving you money. Imagine that. He sat down without being invited. I came to apologize. To me, to you, to Vanessa, to the kids. What I did was wrong. Yes, it was. I convinced myself I was providing a service, giving lonely women companionship, giving them opportunities to invest in promising ventures. You were stealing from them. I know that now. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or deception. All I saw was exhaustion. What do you want, Damien? A job. I almost laughed. You want me to give you a job? I'm good with computers. I understand business. I could be useful. You tried to steal my wife and con my family. I know, but I'm asking anyway. He leaned forward. I'm broke, Nick. Completely broke. My lawyers took everything, and I still owe money to people who don't accept bankruptcy as an excuse. Dangerous people? Let's just say I need to disappear for a while. I thought about it. Revenge was supposed to feel better than this. Damien Price sitting in my office, begging for help, should have been satisfying. Instead, it just felt sad. There's a construction project in Alaska, I said finally. Remote location, basic accommodations, hard work. It pays enough to live on, nothing more. Alaska? Take it or leave it. Damien was quiet for a long moment. When do I start? Tomorrow. There's a flight at 6 a.m. After he left, I called Vanessa. Damien just left my office, I said. What did he want? A job. I gave him one. You gave him a job? Vanessa sounded incredulous. In Alaska, building oil platforms. He'll be gone for at least 2 years. Why would you help him? Because revenge is supposed to have an endpoint. And because Jake and Emily don't need to grow up thinking their father is the kind of man who kicks people when they're down. That evening, we had dinner as a family for the first time in months. Real dinner around our old kitchen table with conversation and laughter and the comfortable chaos of people who belong together. Dad, Emily said as we cleared the dishes, Jenny Morrison's dad lost his job last week. Her mom's really worried about money. What kind of work does he do? Construction, I think. Tell Jenny to have her dad call me tomorrow. Really? Really? After the kids went to bed, Vanessa and I sat on our back porch, drinking coffee and watching the stars. The same porch where she'd told me I'd never be good enough, where our marriage had effectively ended. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd found the briefcase earlier? She asked. Sometimes. Would we have stayed together? I don't know, maybe, or maybe we needed to break apart to figure out how to be together. I'm sorry, Nick, for all of it, for not seeing who you really were. I'm sorry, too, for not fighting harder, for letting you think I didn't care about your dreams. We were both pretty stupid. Yeah, but we're smarter now. She reached over and took my hand. Are we going to make it? I looked at our house. Still modest, still in need of repairs, but full of the people I loved most in the world. Yeah, I said, we're going to make it. 6 months later, Jake got accepted to MIT with a full scholarship he'd earned through his own hard work. Emily's artwork was selected for a statewide competition. Vanessa's nonprofit had helped 50 families navigate difficult divorces. And me? I was still Nick Carlson, the contractor who worked with his hands and built things that lasted. The only difference was that now I had the resources to build bigger things, help more people, and make sure my family never had to worry about security again. The briefcase in the attic had given me more than money. It had given me the power to choose who I wanted to be, and I chose to be the man my grandfather always believed I could become.